Welcome to the People's Food Summit. I'm André and I am the International Director of Regeneration International. And I'm speaking to you from my organic tropical fruit farm in Daintree in far North Queensland in Australia. And this year's People's Food Summit has an incredible lineup of speakers from every continent. Many of these people we call our unsung heroes because they've dedicated a lifetime to our food systems, to moving us away from industrial agriculture and implementing food systems that are healthy for us, healthy for the environment, and healthy for our communities. The depth and breadth of speakers is very stunning. We start in Fiji near the international date line, and we move across the Pacific through Asia, through Africa, Europe, South America and Latin America, and across North America, and we end in California. So we have 24 hours of fantastic speakers from every region of our planet. In some cases, the quality will not be the best because we are doing it by the internet, and a lot of our speakers live in very remote and isolated places. For instance, like myself, I live actually more than 1,000 miles, almost 2,000 kilometers from the nearest capital city in my country. We have other people who are equally remote, so the internet won't work so well. You'll see there'll be glitches, and the visual quality mightn't be the best, but the really important part of what we're communicating is the information. And the depth and breadth of information from our speakers is absolutely stunning. So I want to welcome you to this unique event, the only 24-hour event for World Food Day on the planet, and the incredible diversity of food systems that we have around our planet. And today, World Food Day, will celebrate this diversity of healthy, whole systems, of wonderful people, of building communities. This, what I'll say is diversity at its best. And very, very, very importantly, what we need to do is show that what we can do is the antidote to the reductionist industrial agriculture systems that are producing junk food. It's just empty calories, just incredibly high energy, but no nutrition. And these food systems are poisoning our planet. They are destroying our health. They're the opposite of what we need. And today's event that we are presenting to you is exactly what we need. And what is most important about it is this is real. We are doing it. And you can just see how many wonderful systems and events and organizations and incredible individuals giving their time to these food systems. And I hope that they will inspire you to actually explore these food systems and build on them so that we can build a healthy planet and a healthy environment. We will regenerate our food system, regenerate our health, and regenerate the planet that we live on. So enjoy. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to a very good friend of mine, Karen Mapusua, who is the president of IFOAM Organics International. And actually, I've known Karen for a very long time. I was actually a president of IFOAM Organics International before she took on the position. And she will actually be the longest serving president by the time she finishes this term. So
wow.
It'll be probably close to 10 years by the time I'm up for re-election. So I don't know if I'd call that cruel and unusual punishment, but I know after I did 6 years, it was time for me to step down. So I know what the workload is like. Karen's based in Fiji. She has a day job, works for the Pacific Commission in Suva. It's sort of like the European Union of the Pacific, and she has a range of very important roles for the Pacific. And in that role, she actually has just returned from Stockholm from the Lancet EAT conference, I should say the EAT report, which is the major, you could say, UN report on food and food systems. So, Karen, I'd like you to just start with your impressions, and probably what I'd like to start with is the one we talked about, is how they disappeared the Pacific.
Thanks, André, and it's good to see you. Haven't seen you in person for a while, but good to see you virtually. So I just came back from Stockholm, and it was an interesting conference, and the new Lancet report is very interesting. It has some great things in there as far as food systems and climate. But what I was concerned about was that they really did disappear the Pacific from the report. There was a section of the report that looks at different models of food systems around the world, and it was all based on food systems data that was available. And they included the Pacific Islands with East Asia. We're 15 million people in the Pacific, which is a not large city anywhere in East Asia. So if you put our data in there, it just vanishes and you don't see it. So it resulted in a report that described the Pacific Island food systems as having us eating more vegetables than is necessary for a healthy diet, which is fundamentally false. Our NCDs and our health statistics in the region, very clearly, we are not eating a diet that is rich in vegetables and fruits and fresh produce. If we were, we'd be a whole lot healthier than we currently are, I'm afraid. So that was disappointing for such a prestigious report to disappear us in that way was not great, particularly as the report has a new section which talks about justice. So when I raised this in the conference, I raised it in a frame of justice. It's not just that you can disappear, 22 countries and territories, just because they're small. They're very distinct cultures and places and food systems, and that need to be represented justly in the report.
We should also mention that those 22 countries actually cover more than a third of the planet's surface.
That's right. A third of the planet. We're responsible for, custodianship of the largest ocean, the Pacific. Most of the world's tuna comes from our waters. It's the only sustainably managed tuna fisheries in the world. But still, it just vanished in the data.
Yeah, when I hear things like this, it actually does make me question the whole report. Then that you see they've taken shortcuts. and then you start to then question a whole range of other areas. I haven't read this report in detail, but I know the other ones that I have read, I've been highly critical about essentially their food pyramid. And I know at the moment there's a lot of work being done in terms of showing that the breakdown in their food pyramid is being challenged across the board in terms of what are essential nutrients, what is the breakdown of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, phytonutrients, and so on. So I'll be interested to have a look at it, and I won't be surprised to see that this report will be highly challenged, like the previous reports, over what are seen as biases and actually, how can I say, selective cherry picking of, in some cases, discredited science.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, people are starting to talk about it. There is an immediate reaction about the reducing intake of meat. But something that I thought was interesting in the planetary boundaries framework, they've added in another planetary boundary around pesticides and novel, I've forgotten the word, but it was focusing on pesticides in the environment and saying we've already breached that planetary boundary as well. So I think they're expanding their scope to some things that are really critical issues for the planet, like pesticides.
Actually, I'm really pleased to hear that. It's one of the areas that I've been very critical on them. You know, been so silent on it that
Yeah.
this is, as you know, I've written so many books, papers on it. It's a major issue for me, pesticides, and it's just kept silent. So I'm very pleased to hear that this time they've put that out there and we can have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, really critical.
The other one I just want to talk about is
Mhm.
your role as the president of IFOAM Organics International. For people who don't know too much about it, it's the only global network of organic organizations on the planet. It's the oldest, started in 1972, and it has, we'll say, about around 800 affiliates on every continent. And between IFOAM, the head office, the regional bodies, and also the affiliates, there's a lot of really good projects happening in food systems. And I thought I'd just like to start with where you've been most active, which is in Africa.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot happening amongst our affiliates, people doing all sorts of things to grow the movement and to work in food systems. So in the African continent, we've been working a lot on participatory guarantee systems and also on building capability, so leadership qualities and leadership capability for the organic movement. And that's going really, really well. There's also been a lot of work in the continent around policy development to support the development of organic, agroecological, and regenerative practices. And that, I think, is possibly where we've got the most legs in the continent at the moment, is that engagement between governments and stakeholders to build really supportive policy environments. So that's an exciting piece of work for us.
And
Yeah.
I saw that you've actually started training courses,
Yes.
educational courses in Africa on these three areas: organic, agroecological, and regenerative.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The IFOAM Academy, which is the house, I guess, for our training and capacity building, has focused on those areas there. And we're really looking to build the academy in an inclusive way. So it's not just about the office in Bonn going and doing training. It's about working with our affiliates where their capabilities are so that they can take on training roles in different parts of the world, because local context is so important when you're talking about organic practices and what the organic movement looks like. So that's sort of been working away in Africa, and we're starting to build it up in other parts of the world as well. Got an interesting thing happening in the Pacific at the moment. We've got a developing network of organic learning farms. So they're sort of lead farmers who are building their farms to be learning centres for the circle of farmers around them. So we've got a few in the French territories, and now we've also got them building up in Tonga and in Fiji in particular, and having great success with the farmers leading that training and sharing their knowledge and skills and experience with the farmers around them. So having lots of fun with that and seeing how that rolls out at the moment too.
Actually, that's something I'd really like to see more of, because as we know, farmer to farmer are always the most effective training programs. How can you say the
Absolutely.
most cost effective, the least cost, but we know that these are the ones that we tend to get the most results because farmers trust other farmers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, every Ministry of Agriculture in the world will tell you that their extension officers get a hard time from farmers because they're not practicing themselves. So farmers want to know someone who's actually doing the work in the field. And it's the same with demonstration plots that are run by ministries or someone external. No farmer's going to pay attention to that because, they can't afford to pay all the staff and do all the other things that the ministry might be able to do.
Exactly. And I can say it's the same also with the demonstration plots in research stations and universities and so on. They're not real world. They're these sort of little plots that you can put a whole lot of resources into, but we, as farmers, we can't replicate in the real world, So
No.
when we go to other people's farms and see what they're doing, then we look, learn, and listen because we know this is the real world and it's something that we can take back to our farms.
Yeah. No, that's right.
The,
Yeah.
the other one is, how are you going with the PGS system in the Pacific?
Going really well. So we've got PGS in 7 countries, I think now. Um, Often started through projects, and the learning place is how you move from a PGS started by a development project into a sustainable PGS. And we've had success with that in a few countries. New Caledonia and French Polynesia have both got really robust PGS systems that have been now running for more than 10 years. Um, and doing all sorts of value-added products as well, which is really exciting to see. Um, and we've got different models, some in the Solomon Islands that are based on wild harvest for forest products, others that are around a whole island or a whole village, and they engage with the traditional leadership to help provide, I guess, confidence in the guarantee that the PGS provides. I think there's still more we can do with PGS though. I think it's underutilized as far as um, extension and advisory services. I think we can really tap in more to what those experienced farmers are learning and doing on their farms through the peer review process. So that's an area I'd like to see us strengthen.
I fully agree with you. Yeah, we find governments say it's a conflict of interest to have farmers peer reviewing each other, but then, what do academics do? They peer review. What does the
Yeah,
legal system do? They peer review. What does the medical system do? They peer review. It's the standard way that any professionals
yeah.
operate under. Farmers are professional. If it's good enough for lawyers, doctors, and professors, it's good enough for farmers. And we need to
Absolutely.
get that across that
Yeah.
it really is the, the most important system that we can empower farmers to be their own agents of change, to organize themselves, and to get better market access and better pay for what they do.
Yeah, completely agree, Andre. And I mean, I've been on the farms when they're undertaking the peer reviews and the audits. And farmers are tough on each other because they want to see everything work and they want the best for their community and for the people in the PGS. So they're not going to go lightly on one of their peers that is doing the wrong thing. They're really going to, want that meeting of the standards and the bettering of the standards. So, and I think that's another area of PGS that PGS is um, has opportunity as well. Our third-party standards are a bit out of our hands now. They're in the hands of government. But with the PGS standard, the farmers can identify what's important. And I know that there's a PGS in the Cook Islands that we're looking at having biodiversity requirements in their PGS standards so that the farmers have to continually increase biodiversity on their farms. So it's taking the PGS standards well above what is expected by some of the government regulations, which I think is brilliant.
And not only that, see, I'm a farmer, and I was involved in one of the really early PGSs that we used it also for our quality control. So this is, lychee farmers, and we
Mm.
set our own control standards. And to be part of our group, you had to meet it. And then some of us were what were called the master growers. Now, what we would do, if someone didn't, at first didn't meet the standard, we wouldn't kick them out. One of us as a master grower would actually go around from our packing shed and go
Yeah.
around to the others and help them meet the standard.
Yeah.
Now, we had a rule, 3 times and you're out. If
Yep.
third time you didn't do it, we would kick them out because then we know they were cheating. But
Yeah.
the reality is, what we found more often than not, we just had to train and help farmers
Yeah.
meet these standards. And that's the way PGS works, because the last thing we as a group wants is one of our members putting rubbish out on the market. It destroys our reputation. So this is where PGS, in many ways, has the least conflict of interest, whereas third party has the greatest conflict of interest because the certifiers actually make money by certifying. If they kick out a person, they lose income.
Yeah.
That is the 101 conflict
Mhm.
of
Of
interest.
interest. No, that's very true. And I mean, one of the things I love about PGS is it really is accessible to everybody. It's, a really inclusive approach to providing an organic guarantee. And, the world needs more inclusion right now, in everything, but including in how we support farmers.
Exactly. And, for me, it's it's actually empowering farmers to be their own agents of change. One of the things,
Mm.
like you gave the example of the Cook Islands PGS, is the farmers themselves can make their standard, decide what's in, what's out, not
Yeah.
some bureaucratic committee that they have
That's
no
right.
say over.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
and I think the other beauty of PGS too, that it can easily be turned. You can use the internal control system for group certification if farmers then want to have access to larger markets.
Yeah.
Uh, and I suppose this is a big issue also in the Pacific, that there are quite a few examples of group certification.
Yeah, there are. And PGS can be a good stepping stone, getting everything in order, getting everyone used to keeping the records that are required, and then step through into the third party. But yeah, we've had grower groups for third party certification in the Pacific for a very long time, and they still play an important role, particularly for our tree crops. Smallholders exporting coconut, coffee, cocoa. It really is a important part of the organic toolkit for farmers to be able to access certification that way.
Yeah, and once again, it's so much better than group certification is so much better than the cost of individual certification when you've got a lot of very small farms. just
That's right.
hectares, and it's just a nightmare to go around and, you know, audit every single one every year. It just makes it, um, you know, and
No,
the
no,
cost of
no
certification
sense.
is more than what the farmers will earn.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it would just exclude, yeah, probably 95% of Pacific farmers if it was forced back to individual farms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
the one thing I just want to say to, we're really, Miss I'm wearing my
Mm.
Regeneration International hat
Yeah.
now. We're actually really pleased at IFOAM that you are scaling up education, and we've actually met with Patricia Flores, your manager, doing it. And I want to let you know that I, will come on board, because we've actually got our own academy where we're doing training all around the world. And
Yeah.
one of the things I just said to Patricia, she said, "Oh, we won't compete." And I said, "Look, it's a really big world. We're about this much. We're not competing. We need
No.
to all work together, and combine our resources to get the information out there, get better outcomes." And so I just want to let you know that we are 100% behind what you're doing, and we will also,
Right.
um, we have our trainers that will make them available for you and so on. And these will be at our cost. So,
Oh, great. That's
yeah,
brilliant because, we really want this academy to be decentralized, so we can reach as far as possible. So, and the only way to do that is through partnerships. As you said, it is a very big world.
yeah.
And I don't know that there's any organization that can really do everything themselves. It is about working together and all of us playing to our strengths because we all have a common aim, and that's what we've got to keep our eye on.
Exactly. And that's exactly what our organizations should be doing. We have a common aim, and by working together, we can achieve so much more. Now, for instance, we have a really good training farm in Mexico.
Mm,
We work with Dr. Vandana Shiva with Nabdanya. In fact, I've
yeah.
just come back from doing training there. I go there every year. We have another one in Zimbabwe with Precious Fury, who said that she's really happy to work there. Um, what we need to do, I suppose, you and I, because we live in the Pacific, we we need to look at how we can scale up our region.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's plenty of scope for scale.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
lots of fun
Karen,
for the
I
team.
just, it's been great catching up. I just want to wish you guys the best. For us, iFoam Organics International has such an important role, and you can be assured that Regeneration International is right behind you, and our organizations, we can work together and
Yeah,
achieve our common goals.
great. Thank you so much, Andre. It's an important partnership. I think there's lots that we can do together. And happy to be starting off the People's Summit in the Pacific again this year. Thank you for that too.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hello, and welcome to the People's Food Summit. And today I'd like to introduce you to a friend. I've known him for a long time. He's one of our pioneers in Australia in organic agriculture. He's currently the president of the Organic Agriculture Association in the state of Victoria in Australia. And he's been involved in that organization for over 40 years, and is currently, I'd say, the longest running organic agriculture organization in Australia. He's a teacher, a trained educator, and he developed our first diploma in organic agriculture that was taught at tertiary level, which is, a great achievement. And he's retired from teaching, and his idea of retirement now is to continue teaching, but doing it in Vietnam and Cambodia. And it's a project called Mekong Organics. We had Dr. Van Kien, who started this project, who's a friend of ours. We featured him last year on the People's Food Summit. But Alan is the person who's actually, I call it, at the coalface, spending a lot of time with farmers groups and training them in agroecology and organic agriculture. It's a very good project. I've been involved in it as well, and seeing it firsthand, uh, what they are achieving. So, Alan, what I'd like you to do is introduce yourself and then, you know, show people how you're doing it and what you're doing in Vietnam.
Okay. I got interested in organic farming way back when I was at university in 1970. And ever since then, I've had my own organic garden. I did have organic certification for a while, selling fruit and berries. Um, but And I worked on an organic beef production farm for 10 years in doing research in pasture management there. Now, since I retired, I got involved with a group called Mekong Organics, just by chance, because I met Dr. Kien, who started the group, at the IFOAM conference in Delhi in India in 2017. So we've been working together since then, and it gives me something interesting to do. I enjoy doing it, and I have found lots of wonderful people in Vietnam who have welcomed me, and they look after me really well, and they seem to appreciate what I'm doing there. Now, our organic association, it's a local group, a regional group based in Gippsland. It has promoted organic farming for the last 40 years, and it runs a seed bank. It has a quarterly newsletter, and we run various different the seminars for farmers and the general public. We've got one coming up very soon on organic garlic growing, and another one coming up soon on soil assessment. So this keeps me occupied.
Yeah, I just want to say to Alan, why you say it keeps you occupied. What I think has been really important is the way that you brought communities together and disseminated very important information. I know you say you're a regional group, but I know that you have your group is respected nationwide in Australia, and you actually have a much bigger impact. And people like myself and others, we read your newsletter because it is such a good one, So you're always very modest, but what you've done and what you're still doing is very important.
Okay, so do you want me to?
Yeah, just we'll start
now?
with Vietnam and just show people exactly what's happening there and how the project started.
Okay, so
Yeah, I can't see the slides. All I can see is the Mekong Organics activity. Just click on it again. See, have you got it up on your screen?
Yes.
The PowerPoint, because I can't see anything on mine.
Ah. All right.
Just hold on. I'll just yeah, well, it's showing your screen, so it should come up.
Well, I'll try again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that working now?
No, it's just it says you started screen sharing, but it's yeah, now it's working. That's fine. That's great. Okay,
All right.
that's great. Now you've lost it. Just go back
Yes.
to where you were.
Yeah.
Look, probably the easiest is just click on each slide down the side. See that? Oh, there's a little icon, which is like a cup with a little arrow in it, right at the top, top bar, just before.
Yeah.
If you click on that, you'll get the full screen.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That should take you to full screen, but it hasn't for some reason.
Mm.
Look, Alan, we don't really need to worry about full screen. Just can you see all the little slides on the side? If you just
Yeah.
click on that, it should work. You'll be able to change pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start.
Okay. Mekong Organics was set up by Dr. Nguyen Van Kien, who's Vietnamese, but he lives in Canberra in Australia. Now, the purpose of Mekong Organics is to promote organics in the Mekong region. It's not just for Vietnam, but most of the activities have been in Vietnam so far. It's also to facilitate organic network between Southeast Asia and within Southeast Asia and between Southeast Asia and Australia. There are a lot of different partners that have made this project work quite well. There's organic farmers in both Vietnam and Australia, organic farmers in both countries, various different organisations, NASA, National Association for Sustainable Agriculture Australia, the Vietnamese Organic Agriculture Association, my organisation, Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and Regeneration International. The logos here are quite a few different organisations which are supporters, but doesn't include them all. There are three pillars of Mekong Organics. The first one, which is the original one, was set up for training and for trade. Since then, another pillar has started, which is to connect farming children in Vietnam with tutors in Australia to learn English. And the newest one, which only started this year, is Mekong Organic Chef, which is to promote the preparation of organic food. We have run many organic farming courses going back to 2019. Some of them are for farmers, some are for provincial agricultural and rural development staff. Some of them are for university staff and students, and we've done quite a few for the Mingfu Seafood Cooperative as well. During COVID, things were interrupted as they were everywhere. We got some funding from the Autonomous University of Barcelona in Spain, and this was to create chemical reduction awareness. So we had an online course for several months, which was very successful. Following that, using funding from DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia, we had a 5-month-long course for farmers, organic businesses and support organisations, which reached many hundreds of participants, at least 600 as far as I know. There were 2 sessions per week, each of 3 to 4 hours. It was a monumental course, and it resulted in the production of a book of the proceeds, which is, everything has been translated into Vietnamese, what wasn't into Vietnamese in the first place. And that has gone out to various different universities and departments of agriculture and farmers and organisations in Vietnam. The first major activity was a forum at Nanyang University in 2019. This was followed by a 5-day course in several provinces of the Mekong Delta. Another project was promoting organics in the Khmer community in Chittagong district. That was also very successful. Quite a few farmers converted to organics there and found it greatly increased their income and their sustainability. Another one was a several-day, 1 week, I think, organic course in Kenyang province. 5 days of organic training for it. This was organised through the Triluk commune in Kamau. This commune, with about 6,000 residents, I think, or 6,000 farming families, want to be completely organic. So this course was to help facilitate that. In that area, they produce rice in the wet season with river prawns, and in the dry season, where the water is too salty for rice, they grow tiger prawns. It's interesting that the Departments of Agriculture and Rural Development are quite interested in learning about organic farming too. So we've had a few courses with various different DARDS groups. One really interesting project is to create an organic or a non-chemical buffer zone around the Chumchim National Park. This is a habitat for the Sarus crane, and the crane feeds not only in the wetland, but also in the rice fields that surround it. So the aim is to create a region where there will be no chemicals used in order to protect those cranes and multitude of other bird life in the wetlands. Just last month, I did a course for the Southern Horticultural Research Institute in organic orchard management and organic certification. So again, this is very interesting that these various researchers are now interested in organics. With funding from DFAT, Mekong Organics ran organic trade forums in 2024 in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Sydney, and Melbourne. And this was to showcase organic produce from both countries in order to increase particularly the marketability of organic produce from Vietnam. As part of that, there was a tour for Vietnamese organic farmers and businesses to various different farms and businesses in Australia, in the Riverina district of New South Wales and Gippsland in Victoria. 20 people came, and this has had a lasting impression on them, and also a lasting impression on the Australian farmers who volunteered to host visits by these people. But there's been various other activities in the past and continuing. A floating rice research project. This is deep water rice, where rice is grown in 6 feet of water, 2 meters of water. Mekong Organics has assisted the achievement of organic certification for one farm, and we'll probably be doing some others in the future. Every year, one person from Vietnam is funded to attend a long organic farming training course in Japan. There is support for the Tindat Organic Rice Co-op. We've had coffee shop discussions in various locations, various online one-day forums for macadamias, food forests. Currently, there is a 3-year catfish waste reduction project. This is to go through the whole value chain of catfish farming to reduce the waste from the various parts of that farm. Various other courses. There was funding for one person to attend a 10-day permaculture certificate course in New South Wales in 2023, and hopefully there will be others of that in the future. The English for Organic Farm Teenagers started only a few years ago. The first group was the rice group in Sok Chang province, which is Dr. Kien's home province. There's the mango group, the rice shrimp group, coffee group, tea group, crane group, which is based around the national park, the Chum Chim National Park. In each group, there are about 5 teenagers, and they are taught, they come from farming communities. They are taught by Australian volunteers online, usually for 1 hour per week. I've met quite a few of these people when they were just starting, the students that I mean, and 2 years later, and the difference was truly amazing. It's been a wonderful system. There are also groups set up for Vietnamese teachers of English, the Emu group, Kangaroo group, and Koala group. And that is to increase the skills of English teachers in Vietnam. Some of these students have been able to come to Australia. 2 boys from the Mango group came to stay with their tutors in Malakuta in Eastern Victoria for 2 months. And 2 girls from the Mango and Tea groups went there this year. And I helped host 2 boys from the Rice Shrimp group in Melbourne and Bairnsdale, my hometown. So this has been a wonderful experience for those students and greatly increased their English speaking ability. The third pillar is Mekong Organic Chef. Now, this man here, Mr. Tien, is a chef at a 5-star restaurant in Ho Chi Minh City, and he volunteers to come out to various farms in Vietnam to demonstrate the preparation methods for organic food. All right, just in conclusion, there are many factors contributing to the success of Mekong Organics' work. Of course, there will be a lot more success in the future with more funding. Now, part of the reason for the success is the excellent contacts that Dr. Kien has in government, both national and provincial in Vietnam, and in universities and the farming community. There is a dedicated team of skilled organisers in Vietnam that are really good at recruiting people for events and organising everything. There is now a network of experienced ecological farmers in Vietnam who participate in the training sessions. And there is a good network of Australian ecological farmers too, who have also greatly benefited, I think, from the interaction with Vietnamese farmers. The organics is national and provincial government policy in Vietnam. And so there is at least verbal support for what Mekong Organics and other groups are trying to do. There's also the support from various organisations, the Vietnam Organic Agriculture Association, my own group, OAA, NASA from Australia, and PGS Vietnam. And of course, the volunteer English teachers and the organic farming educators. That is a key part of it. There's been various sources of funding. So I want to acknowledge those from a Rotary Club, especially the Hall Rotary Club in Canberra, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and various different benefactors. So that's basically the story of Mekong Organics so far.
Look, thanks, Alan. One of the points I'd like to make as well is the fact that the Vietnamese government is very supportive of organic agriculture. Both of us, we were in Vietnam only a few weeks ago in Ninh Binh, and hosted by the regional government there, but also with very good support from the central government.
Yes, that's right. And part of their motivation, I think, is that, that there's quite serious environmental pollution being caused by chemicals. So that's something that the government is keen to address. And also there's growing awareness among consumers in Vietnam about the need for clean food.
Yeah, and from my point of view, someone who's so I probably taught the first organic agriculture course in the the Southern horticultural fruit research station, the one that you were at this year, and I remember they wanted to do it, but it was actually the Australian government that stopped all the funding. The Vietnamese were the ones who wanted to do it, and they said, no, you don't support organic. And from what I really liked about what Kien has done, he changed it. That was the first time in all my 20 years of experience in Vietnam that someone has actually got the Australian government to put money into an organic project in Vietnam rather than an industrial chemical process. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Dr. Ken has achieved a lot, I think. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's why I've been, very happy to put my support but saying that, the last round, we didn't get the funding. I put in a lot of my time and support to help get it, but once again, the anti-organic, what I call the scientific mafia in Canberra, blocked it. Even though I look at all the projects, money that Australia spends in agriculture, and I just want to say the outcomes of what you and Kian have achieved with Mekong Organics is probably the most spectacular.
Well, thank you, André.
Well, look, I can say that for a fact. I'm someone who has had very good links also with the Vietnamese government, involved in helping them start the Vietnamese Organic Agriculture Organization as a separate one. I was involved in getting the PGS up, and these have really, how can you say, blossomed in Vietnam. And the other thing I just want to say too is the Vietnamese Organic Agriculture Organization, the head of that, Dr.
Mick.
Dr. Mick, Yahapa Mick, what a lot of people don't realize, he's actually the head of the VFU, the Vietnamese Farmers Union, which is the organization. And by being the head of that, he's actually a minister in the national government. That is the level of support. And he's very modest about it. Most people, when we're in Ninh Binh, wouldn't have realized, that they had one of the most senior members of the central government hosting us.
Yes. Yes, I didn't realize myself.
Yeah. But Mick, he's a good friend for me, and we go back a long way. And but I just want to say, Alan, because I've had 20 years experience and seen it develop. What I like about what you are doing is on what I call basically the smell of an oily rag. That's the sort of funding you've got. No one's paying you. You get all these consultants getting $4,000 or $5,000 a day and achieving nothing. And you go into the villages, you live with them, you're their friend, they respect you. And the results are, they speak for themselves. Those farmers, are the ones now, because of their respect for you and their trust, doing organic agriculture. And to me, that's a really important part of how you do the project.
Yeah, they look after me very well too. Generally, when I'm in Vietnam, I hardly need to open my wallet at all because, generally my travel is covered and travel insurance is covered and accommodation while I'm there, and so it's a good experience for me. It's a holiday really. I enjoy being there. I enjoy the company of these Mekong Organics crew and the farmers.
Yeah. Well, Alan, I'm really pleased to hear it. We actually need more projects like yours. You know, but what you're doing is having impact. And so I just want to thank you for that, Alan. And I look forward to the next time we catch up.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, André.
See you, mate. Ciao.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to the People's Food Summit. and introduce you to another one of my friends. And Niels Olsen is a regenerative farmer in Gippsland in Victoria in Australia. And he's one of our most innovative farmers. Niels was the first farmer in Australia, and actually the first farmer in the world, to be paid through a government regulatory system for sequestering carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and into the soil as soil organic matter. And he's the only farmer in Australia who's actually done it 3 times in a row, and I believe he's up for a 4th time now. Other farmers have done it once, but they haven't been able to show consistent increases in soil organic matter. Niels has, because, as I said, he's one of our most innovative farmers. He has developed a very special piece of farming equipment called Soilkee that essentially renovates the soil, and by doing so, essentially opens it up to the microbes and through photosynthesis, through cover crops, and has shown an ability to take down huge amounts of carbon dioxide. We're talking tons per hectare, and storing it into the soil. And I just want to say as well, when you extrapolate what Niels has done, and if we could do that around the world, I've worked out we could actually take out 55 gigatons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere into the soil. That's more than the current 36 gigatons that go up. In other words, this piece of equipment could make the whole world go not net zero, but negative. So this is, for me, is phenomenal technology. It's very simple, it's very cost effective, and we have the solid science to show that it works. So Neil, I'll hand it over to you, and if you'd like to show people exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, thanks very much, André, for asking us to speak today. I'm not sure what you're seeing up on your screen, but
Nothing yet. You have to bring your
screen up. Yeah.
Can you see the share screen? Good. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yep. No, that should be up and happening now. No, very good.
We're good.
The Soilkee system is enhancing the functionality of your soil and your plants, and maximising the use of your sunlight, air and water, and the nutrients that are already in your soil that are locked up. So this is how the system really sort of potentially works. And the way that we're getting that to enhance is filling the gaps in your fodder on your farm, and enhancing the growth over those hard to grow periods, which makes farming systems easier as well. So where we're getting the maximum carbon building is where we're getting the maximum photosynthesis as well. So that's how the whole process goes. And we're planting mixed species seeds into a pasture situation, but we're sheet composting the whole area at the same time. So this is the what we're achieving in fodder that we're feeding off to animals, which is quite more tonnes per hectare than general grazing, because of the multi-species and having plants sort of more mature to have more leaf area for photosynthesis as well, which actually increases the carbon as well. So, so the nutrient supply that we're getting through into our pastures, like there's tests coming up that we'll show you a bit later, but we're getting quite an increase in the nutrients that are in the plants that is coming from the balance that the Soilkee system creates in the soil. And it depends where you're starting at. If your balance is fairly good in the soil with your microbes and fairly functional, self-aggregating, you get a really quick response. But it's like the actual method that we're approaching with is only like it's a 17% like disturbance on the pasture in the surface, and in the soil. So the actual cover of soil over the top of the left pasture after grazing gives you that sheet composting effect, which feeds the microbes 3 or 4 times the weight of microbes in your soil, which self-aggregates it, gets it up and gets the air into it. So like the air is very important. If you're going to be picking up nitrogen out of the air to run your system, you need that 20% air in your soil. So that's where we're really seeing the benefits. Once the soil is self-aggregating, because you've increased the nutrient supply by the sheet composting method, we're actually creating the ease of the plant to pick up the nitrogen out of the air, because 78% nitrogen in the air that we breathe. The microbes in the soil want to get hold of it. You've actually got to have the air in the soil to do that. So creating the structure is the key to that whole thing thriving well. Most soils have lost their structure down to very compacted, and this system is rapidly able to pick that back up. And holding the moisture, making the most of your rainfall and capturing it for the plants to use. So that's where the increase of infiltration, so it doesn't run off, is the first thing. But then hanging on to the moisture in the soil profile so that your moisture goes back through the plants rather than evaporating straight back out to the atmosphere. And even once you've got your fungal gel holding the particles of soil together, the nutrients stay in the particle, and like in these 2 jars of water with soil in them, in the Soilkee one, it's very clear water. You're not having the particles dissolve out into the water and then wash away. So you keep all your available nutrients on farm, or a lot more easy to keep it on farm. And then over in the soil core samples, you've actually got, you can see the colour changing, and that's sort of 7 Soilkee treatments over 5 years. And these core samples are about 20 metres apart. One's never been touched, it's control, and the other one's been Soilkee over that 5 years. And you can just see visually the darkening with the carbon in the soil profile and the moisture. Because like on the bottom one, there's very little moisture. There's only a couple of centimetres, yet there's like 30 plus centimetres on the top one. So that's very important to create that in every system, because that's one of the main things that's been disappearing with general agriculture, I suppose. And then the sunlight, a lot of agriculture in grazing systems haven't really been that focused on solar panel surface area, because the more surface area you've got to collect the sunlight, and the more efficient your plants are at photosynthesizing, the more sugars get pumped into the soil to build carbon and feed the microbes, create soil structure. Now, like poor compacted soil, low nutrient availability, yellowing plants that are very sick, it's only like 5% of what the plant's potential is in photosynthesis under those conditions. It takes about 25% of the plant's genetic potential of photosynthesis to create normal yield and normal growth. Once you get above that 25%, you're actually getting sugar exudates pouring into the soil, which is what's building your carbon and feeding the microbes to self-aggregate your soil. That's the main purpose of the sheet composting system of Soilkee. Helps create that rapidly. Once you've got that aggregation happening, you've got the nutrient cycling, you've actually got a lot more feed in your winter and a lot more feed in your summer period, which makes it so much easier, especially here in West Gippsland, we've got a really good growing season in the spring and the autumn. It gets a bit cold in the winter and a bit dry in the summer. We're now able to grow ample fodder prior and still grow something through those tougher periods, which just helps the farming system. And you're building carbon all the time as well. This is in the middle of winter. We've got sunflowers flowering still. So, we didn't plant them especially for that. They were just in the seed mix, but they've come up and flowering in the middle of winter. So that we've never been able to achieve until we got the soil really good as well. And this is the same as those soil cores before, but it's showing your the moisture in it and the carbon building up. Now in the top two core samples, they're the whole core sample. And like on the very top one, we could not get the bottom piece of the core sample to come up. It was that wet and moist. So the moisture captured and retained in the core over the winter has moistened that up and given us a big reserve of water on the property, 30 to 40% increase compared to the core sample below that. And that's what gives us a reserve. And the actual dryness in like the very bottom one, you've got all that dryness. You've only got 2.5 centimetres of moisture, and that's at the near the end of October. So that's at the end of our winter, and this is all the moisture we've got stored. Yet in the Soilkee system, we've got thousands of litres of water stored in the profile to help us through the summer. The nitrogen use efficiency is greatly increased when you've actually got air and nitrogen in the soil profile, and you've got the biology home for the biology to do their job. Once we've got a bit of functionality returned to the soil profile, we can really increase the legumes, and like there's the third photo, or the centre photo, has got nodules on one pea plant. Like, really increase the functionality is fantastic. And the major actual element for building carbon is nitrogen. So we're capturing plenty of nitrogen in our profile. And then once you've got the aggregation and the home for the bacteria that can pick up the nitrogen themselves out of the air, which is a bit like the fifth photo along on the ryegrass root system, you've actually got bacteria in the soil that can pick it up themselves. So you don't have to rely on the plant. And like looking at the crops in between, there's no nitrogen been on those property for over 30 years applied, and they're not lacking one bit of nitrogen. There's plenty available in the natural system once it's working and able to work. And then grazing it for maximising the photosense efficiency and building the carbon, and actually getting the fibre balance right, or a lot better in the fodder. Like sometimes early on, it's a little bit lush for the animals to graze, where that 70, 80 days or even a bit longer, you get a bit more fibre in your plants, really good for weight gain, 25, 30% increase in weight gain in that fodder. So there's been a few dairy farmers that were really keen on their 25, 30 days grazing rotation. Once they've taken on the Soilkee system, they've gone from their 25, 30 days and taken it out to that 70, 80, even 90 days. And the soil improvement they create by doing that, by having the extra solar panels feeding their soil, especially in that highly fertile dairy country, has really ramped up the food source for the plants from the sugars coming out, feeding the microbes in the soil as well. So it's just maximising the natural system and getting the benefit, where in some of the conventional systems, if they try and take it this far, the plants are falling over, they can't stand up, they're dropping leaves because they can't they have to translocate the nutrients chasing the photosynthesis, where once you've got the soil providing the nutrients, all this is possible, no worries at all. We plant out about that 17% in rows with the Soilkee system. We're putting these seeds in, the winter and summer mix. There's a little variety of difference between that for the temperature different changes. The purpose sort of that we're really putting the changes on as well are like the rye corn and the millet, which actually gives you early quick fibre. Because when you're getting too hot a pasture, the animals can't digest it with too much protein in it. Because some of the testing we did early on was like 60% increase in protein in 5 and 6 weeks. So that's where we really had to pay attention early on to that, because no one was used to that much protein in their pasture in these mixes. So we've adapted the mix to cover that, and putting some herbs in and legumes in balances the whole thing out. And as the soil nutrients change very quickly early on, different things grow and fill the gap. So there's a big variety, heaps of nutrients sharing amongst those plants, and gets things up and going very, very quickly. 95 or more % of our customers use the straight mix all the time. This is the carbon sequestering side of it, what we're building. And over the year on average, we're getting that sort of 10.35 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. So we're sequestering quite a bit of CO2 equivalent, which equates to around that 2 tonne of carbon per hectare per year, increase in your soil profile. Now we've been, we've tested the 3 times, coming up with all this data, and like at current price for those credits per hectare, it's $280 per hectare per year that we're creating with the Soilkee system, building carbon. And we're about to test for the 4th time again. And we're actually still the only ones that I'm aware of that has tested more than once and claimed credits. We're on to our 4th time now. So consistent, large sequestration, 10 plus more times more carbon that the science community seems possible. Well, they haven't done the research on the Soilkee system. They've done their research on monocultures, just ryegrass pasture. Well, that's all you can achieve with ryegrass pasture. We're a multi-species with ryegrass in it. Yep, you can achieve these results. So that's the big difference. Once you've got the system and the sheet composting happening, you're off, So the independent trials that we've recently done have actually given us like an 18% increase overall, but we've actually got like 2/3 that increase has been below 30 centimetres to a metre. So we're one of the only ones around that I know of that is increasing carbon at depth. So once you increase and put carbon in at depth, you've actually got it there long term. Whereas some of these other, like a cover crop type system and things like that, they're only doing it on the surface. So it's very vulnerable to the seasonal conditions. But if you're building carbon at depth, it's there for the long term and feeds your plants and keeps them thriving longer in your seasons. So this is some of the data we did early on the plant available nutrients in the Soilkee system. So like your nitrogen's up 122, phosphorus up 34%, sulfur 51, dry matter increase in yield 30% increase, crude protein 13 to 45% increase, and like the carbon increase on that area over the 12-month period from that 1.7 to 1.46. So it's nearly 1 point, so 24% increase. That is huge in the 1 year. And we do find that a bit. We get a huge increase early on because because of a lot of that actual plant matter that has been sitting there for years, it's unbroken down. Once you get the microbes processing that, it brings it into true carbon, then it's part of the testing. So there's quite often a rapid increase in the first year, but then, it levels out, and then it's relying more on your photosynthesis increase to build your carbon, and that's what we've been doing. So it averages out that 10 ACCUs per hectare per year now. This is some of how the Soilkee system, it's like 3 times in, I think, and the nutrient increase virtually across the board in the soil nutrients virtually doubles every nutrient available to the plant. Now, even just like, where is it there, like on your, the calcium one there is what, 2,390 to 5,788. Now, that increase in available nutrient is unheard of, which really helps the cycling of those nutrients and the structure building of the plants. Your phosphorus is nearly doubled, zinc's nearly doubled, and the aluminium is only 10% virtually of what it was. So once you're building carbon and changing the pH, lifting the pH, and you're lifting the pH by the microbes. The microbes are doing all the work for you. So that's where we're actually getting that improvement. And all of these nutrients have actually increased, doubled, no fertiliser applied. All of the farm studies that we're doing, there's no fertiliser. It's sheet composting and Soilkee alone, concentrating on sheet composting, which is increasing the biological activity and getting the nutrients available out of your soil profile that's been locked up for years. So that's the main thing that we need to concentrate on and understand, which is it's simple, but it's takes a little bit to get it perfected. It's easy enough to do, but to perfect it takes a little bit more.
Yeah. Look, Niels, I just wanted to just explain, let people know how important what you've shown is.
Yeah.
You're a commercial farmer. You're someone who actually has dramatically increased your production of beef on your place.
Yeah.
Now, most people say, oh, he's exporting nutrients. You've got to put lots of fertilizers. But the opposite has happened. You have, doubled your nutrients, in some places even more. So this is what we need to let people know is it's a mythology that you have to pour all these nutrients on to get yield. It's about changing the management system, and you've demonstrated with very good data how you can do it.
Yeah, it's like the management system helps the organic side of it function at a higher level. So when the balance is there with the sheet composting effect, it helps that balance at the level, and that tons that's available to plants in a metre deep soil profile is huge. Like all the measuring we've done now over like nearly 10 years since we've been Soilkee, all the measuring done, we have not seen any reduction in any nutrients in the soil profile totals at all in 10 years. So the warning that you're going to export everything off your farm is unfounded.
Yeah.
So we haven't got nothing lacking, nothing looking like it's disappearing. It's all still there. So because of the functionality, like the nitrogen, like we might be exporting protein and nitrogen off the farm, but there's that much nitrogen in the air and the little elements of all the other ones. In the process of building carbon, there's little bits of stuff here and there that help build it up anyhow. So there's the chemical reactions make some of these things in the profile. So that's the new learning that we're bringing forward, that it's not actually lots of stuff going off and you need to exactly replace that. There is a lot getting built in your soil under an organic natural system, everything is building in your soil, where a conventional system, everything's depleting and getting locked up in your soil. And it's not so much getting carted away just by the produce, it's leaching away by the water, down the profile, out of the testing zone, and also off into the river. So the nutrients do disappear, yes, they do. And they've tested that, it does disappear, but not in a fully functioning organic system. Nothing disappears. Yeah. Captures more.
And what I also want to say, so people can actually understand why we're not mining, is that because you're using photosynthesis to put all those sugars to feed the biology is releasing all the locked up minerals in the subsoil. Now, the subsoil goes down to the center of the earth. We have thousands of kilometers. In other words, we've got unlimited resources. You know, it'd take hundreds of millions of years to run it down. But
that's right.
In our system, what we're doing, because it's in my farm as well, is we actually build fertility because the biology unlocks this incredible reservoir of plant available minerals.
And it's like the weight of soil with depth slows the biological activity, mainly because of the lack of oxygen. It's hard to maintain oxygen at 3.5 meters deep. That's when it slows off. But most of this system can operate quite functionally at 3.5 meters. So 3.5 meters of your property of soil supplying nutrient to grow your fodder. We've got billions of years of nutrients sitting there, and we'll be improving it anyhow.
Just for our friends in the United States, that's 11 feet deep.
Yeah.
Just to get an idea of how deep Niels can go.
Yes, yeah. We're not there yet. We've gone from 3 inches to 18 inches. That's as far as we've gone. But that's in 10 years. So, you know, we've got a fair bit more to go. There's no restriction apart from the compaction factor. If you're supplying sugars through root systems, the bugs will be quite happy down there. And they are in the soil cores that we're taking up now, like there was no worms or worm castings or worm tracks below about what we'll convert it to inches, say 6 inches deep, and now we've got it 3 feet deep. So that's a difference in 10 years. So yeah, where it's going to be in another 10 years, it's getting more and more function quicker and quicker as you build the system. It combines and functions quicker and better, and in more extreme conditions, more cold and more dry, it functions better and better. So,
look, Niels, I just want to talk about that because what we're seeing in farming is this increase in extreme conditions.
Yeah,
and also the unreliability of weather and rainfall.
Yes.
And one of the things that you have shown is this ability to capture rain whenever it comes and store it and keep it there. For people to understand, the climate that Niels lives in is what we call a Mediterranean climate. They get winter rain. It's cold and wet in winter and hot and dry in summer. And it's in both those times where basically any pasture system suffers. Normally in winter, it's, there's very little pasture growth. People tend to overgraze it. The soils are waterlogged. And then summer, it's the other way around. It's so dry.
Yes. Yeah.
And but what you have done in both cases, you've got phenomenal winter growth by planting all these winter growing species.
Yes.
You've stored all the water you've captured, and then you've got summer growing species. So you've got, how can you say, the amount of biomass or feed you've got is phenomenal. Plus, you've got the water now for the whole year.
Yes, yeah, and like 75 mil or 3 inch rain event we can have into our soil profile in under 3 minutes with the aggregation and let it in. So like the weather events are changing a bit, but the actual soil structure to capture the weather event and utilize it has rapidly disappeared over the last 40, 50 years with the conventional fertilizing and grazing systems and everything. So they haven't been focused on maintaining good soil function. So once you've got your moisture in, that's not the end of the story. That's the start of the story, because you can run like a riptide or whatever and capture your water, and yes, you've caught your water, but if the water is held in soil that is relatively non-functional or dead, it just evaporates back out to the atmosphere in the next week. If you're putting it into the self-aggregating fungal filled sponge that hangs onto it and then doesn't evaporate it back off again, you've caught that water and it's ready to be used by the plant. And you can see that in those core samples. It's there. The reserve is built up there. They're saving that soil is saving it for the plant when there's no rainfall coming from the sky. So that's the understanding. Excuse me. That's the understanding that needs to be taught, because yes, the weather's changing and the conditions are changing to a small extent, but your ability to capture and hold water and put it back through photosynthesis on the plant has, 200 or 300% declined in the last 30 years. Well, that's why you're finding it tough to farm, and pretty well the main reason. So you can pour all the fertilizer you want on. If you can't hold water in your soil, it's all over. You've got to come and irrigate again. So the irrigation costs are doubled, and they're just not efficient anymore. So that's where you need to understand that the life in the soil needs to be fed. And it's even like this slide that's up there now. It's the aggregation of soil with the penetrometer readings over this trial that they did. You can see the bottom blue lines. That's where the Soilkee barrier is at a certain pressure point. Now, the increase, the tillage hasn't done that at all. That's nearly twice as deep as the tillage has softened it. That's the microbial activity self-aggregating the soil, feeding the fungi, that is actually softening that soil profile, getting it ready to absorb those all the oxygen into it, but also absorbs all the moisture into it and then hangs onto it. Doesn't let it just disappear straight back to the atmosphere, where like we've been, this is mainly digging with a shovel around. We haven't had the moisture meters out that much, but about 3 or 4 days after a rainfall event, and you go to a control area, you've got 5 or 6 millimeters of moisture left on the surface. Where you go to a Soilkee area that's been 6 or 7 times, there's like 40 or 50 millimeters, so like 2 inches or a quarter of an inch. So that's how much moist soil you've got after a week, after maybe a half-inch rainfall event type thing. So those efficiencies you can see that with a shovel. Like you don't need much more testing. It's pretty easy to see.
Well, look, this is actually really important. What a lot of people don't realise, that between 95 to 98% of a plant is actually carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, our so-called evil greenhouse gas. For us, it's the most important fertilizer for plants, and water.
Yes.
Sunlight, and that makes glucose, the primary sugar that is the building block of life. So managing water is the most important part, and sunlight, the most important part of what we do in farming. And what your system is showing, how you just dramatically increase your water use efficiency.
Yeah, but before this sort of has been developed, it was very hit and miss. You couldn't sort of follow much. It worked sometimes or didn't work other times with other methods. This method seems to be building towards that functionality, and you're actually being able to measure and see the performance and do the core samples and see the moisture there, and test it and see the increases on the farm as well. So that's where at large scale. So it's the organic system that is functioning at a level that is able to be measured by a number of factors, and it's the air, water, and sunlight, how it all functions together is what's creating the whole system. And the balancing effect of Soilkee to get the nutrients to maximise that is the one that really gives that increasing photosynthesis efficiency to push the carbon back into the soil and improve where the plant grows. So.
And I suppose what so I'm just mindful of the time. Maybe what I just want to do is just summarize all the benefits of your system, and just so people can understand the difference in terms of what you've done, which is you've massively increased the amount of nutrients. You've massively increased your production capacity. You've massively increased water use efficiency. You haven't spent a cent on fertilizers or pesticides.
Yep.
In other words, the cost of running the system, how much does a seeds cost to run? It's as an input.
It's not much at all.
Yeah, exactly. What I mean is, in terms of when we're talking about a profitable farm,
yes,
it's got everything going for it. And the other one too is when you talk about you're being paid for soil carbon, which, how can you say, $280 a hectare is pretty good pocket money.
Yes.
Not that we sneeze that. It all helps. But most importantly, I just think when we're looking at the moment where governments are sort of covering fertile farmland with solar panels and big windmills and putting power lines through our farms and industrializing our landscape for net zero, when really all we need to do is change management. The amount of carbon that you've been doing, which is 10 tons per hectare per year, if we were to scale that up across agriculture, we would be past net zero. It would be negative.
Yes. Yeah, easy. Yep.
So I just wanted to put that across, so people can understand the multiple benefits.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like the organic system, how well it can clean up the soil and clean up the environment. And that's like on this slide here at the moment, the Dilden and the DTT. Like we've reduced that from ungrazable levels to grazable levels ticked off, that it's virtually clean. They can't even find any DDT. So this is the cleanup aspect, and the point that's really coming through now, that the conventional systems that aren't focused on the organic function of soil are depleting and locking up and restricting the performance of the air, water, and sunlight in the natural system. So any organic system that is focused on air, water, and sunlight and enhancing whatever it can do organically is always heading down this path. Soilkee's, and where we found, if it's a natural system fairly undisturbed, the Soilkee extra feeding of the organic matter and putting the plant sugars back in under the sheet composting effect really take off. But when you've got some of these, like your Dilden and DDT, or you've got a long use of conventional fertilizers and very compacted soil, you've got to get the soil function coming back. And it's really the microbial balance in the soil profile once you've got compacted soil, you've got an aerobic biology dominating in that soil profile. And you've got to bring that back to aerobic, and you've got to have a food source and a system that creates that. And that's what the Soilkee system is able to do rapidly from the conditions, or the varied conditions, the varied plants, and the sheet composting effect, and the growing out of the plants a little bit longer for photosynthesis, capturing all the water. All those factors under the Soilkee system enable this to happen. Where if you're only doing one or two of those, it doesn't really happen. You've got to have all of them happening at once at the same time to create this to happen.
Niels, I'll get you to go back to the bushfire
Yep.
slide that you've got,
Yes.
just to show people the difference in what having, with the Soilkee
Yep.
giving you extra moisture.
Yeah, it's extra. But this is also a very good example. Aggregated soil can absorb some of the heat of the fire. Where if you've got hard, compacted soil, it reflects the heat and just totally chars the paddock off. So there's the extra moisture, the extra green on the plant when the fire went through. So here it is again, there's 3 or 4 different factors. You end up with some grazable feed after a fire, or you've got a charcoal paddock. So this is the difference that is created in, I think it was only like 3 passes to create that effect. So this is the one of the key messages that we're not doing it so much for fire prevention, but here's an extreme. The same fire, the same wind went right through the whole property, and there's a split photo. One's the fence line, but the other one's up under where we couldn't Soilkee underneath the trees, and that's where it's burnt out charcoal the same. So the actual conditions will bounce back because you've got some of the biology still alive there, that sort of thing, where when the whole place has been charred off, it's a lot slower start off and that sort of thing. So they're the effects that we're seeing all the way through, and they all add up to increase in profitability for the farmer. So the more organic, the more natural system you've got working well, the better the outcomes seem to be everywhere. There's no downside to being good functioning organic system whatsoever.
Exactly. I think what you've shown very impressively with all the slides is this resilience. To extremes, like a fire is pretty extreme. In terms of when we get extreme rain events, the ability to capture it all and take us through so that we're good in droughts. Just so the no need to spray weeds. I think this is another really good one to get get across to people what happens when you improve the soil, because a lot of people don't believe this, and I tell people what you regard as your worst weeds are going to disappear.
Yes,
the plants you want will be the ones you want. So show this.
Yeah. Well, this is a fairly heavy clay soil, fairly compacted when we first started, dominating by the dot plant, which is the red leaf plant there, which is normally green. Like, they don't have red leaves, they're normally green. But as we've changed the biology in that soil to aerobic and self-aggregating soil, the plant now that used to dominate and take out our pasture is now being struggling to grow, and then all the insects come and shred the leaves on it. So it's been taken out, and the preferred plants are dominating now. So, and it's changing that soil chemistry or balance of biology to a more favourable condition, and then those plants don't like it, and the insects end up taking them out. So it's not every weed does that, but this was a big problem weed that we've had for 30 years, and now it's gone. It took us probably 4 or 5 years, and it's completely gone now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of other problem weeds you can shade out too with but
Yeah.
when you plant the what I call a cow salad.
Yes. Yeah, and it's the nitrate weeds. Like we have a lot of nitrate weeds in agriculture around Australia, and like the nitrate weeds are they're trying to correct that oversupply of nitrates in the soil. That's why they dominate, because the other plants can't survive in that, so they're dominating. You run Soilkee once, twice, and the nitrate weeds are 99% gone, because you've actually taken that nitrogen and put it into carbon. So then the soil's back in balance. There's not a high nitrate anymore, and then everything else functions. And it's still got ample nitrogen in the system. It's just not over nitrate. So, cattle camp areas and all stuff like that, you just correct it back out. You'll still get a few, if you've bared the paddock off and cut it for hay and given it a hard time, you'll get a few weeds, but Soilkee back into it and it's all fine again in 6 months' time. So the weeds won't take over. The weeds are disappearing under this system all the time. Yeah.
And so in terms of management for farmers, there's so much less work. You're not spending a fortune on spraying. You're not out there for all the time involved, and also for the environment and your health. You're not some of the most toxic poisons.
Yeah, just that you brought that up. This paddock where the guys are standing in at the moment, that was cut for hay for probably 40, 50 years. No, it'll be 40 years. For 40 years, virtually every year, it was the main hay paddock on the property. And it was quite bared off in the summer, had quite a bit of capeweed and that sort of thing on it, where now there's no capeweed. So like once you change the chemistry back and all those restrictions are gone, you're actually, any of the excesses can either be absorbed into the freshly formed carbon or help build the carbon that balances the nutrient supply and helps the plant grow, but also helps increase the aggregation and the carbon in the soil. So all things work together, heading for that one direction. And it's like the proof that it's working is the photosynthesis is increased because you're actually getting carbon in the soil profile.
Yeah.
If you're not increasing your carbon, you're just having enough efficiency of photosynthesis to grow your plant. Or if you're not growing your plant properly, you're actually probably losing carbon out of your soil profile. So when you're building carbon, that like 2 tonne of carbon or 10 tonne of CO2 equivalent per hectare per year, like it's a big input from that gases into your soil profile through the plants, which there's no extra cost for. You're growing your fodder. This is just a function of natural plants that benefit you every year.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I like about this picture, it shows exactly what we're doing. This is solar-powered farming. We are actually capturing as much sunlight as possible, not wasting any of it, because bare soil doesn't photosynthesize, and getting all those leaves to use solar energy to take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, combine it with all the water that you've captured.
Yes.
And then, as you said, a percentage of that, it's usually around 30% of these molecules go to feed the soil microbiome, the bacteria and the fungus, and build the fertility.
It kills the fertility, but once you understand what the organic system can create and give you, like the ploughing and keeping your land fallow to retain moisture, have no plants growing in it. I don't know who worked that out, because you look at this system, you look at the soil cores, having the plants growing, keeping the soil fungal population to hold the moisture, job's done. And you've actually grown something instead of leaving it fallow. So you grow something and you're improving the soil. So once they learn that, they'll never do that again. Once they understand what the natural system can do, they'll never plough to retain moisture. They'll haven't been taught to get the soil functioning properly to retain moisture. It is far cheaper, far easier, far more consistent. And once you've got that created in your soil, it's there forever. If you don't muck it up, it's there forever. So, and rapidly increases. So, and it's like, you know, you're cover cropping, and you'll crimp your cover crop down and get 5% of the nutrient out of that cover crop into your soil. Well, the Soilkee system comes along with virtually a cover crop sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
You graze 80% of it, and then you cover up 5%, and you're 10 times more nutrient back into the soil. And you've grazed what you grew.
Yeah.
So
what you've got is photosynthesis in, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. What you've got in your climate, because you don't have a hard freeze,
yep.
you can grow and photosynthesize 12 months of the year.
Yes.
You've got no downtime.
Yep.
But even in, say, climates in North America, for instance, where you've actually got a hard freeze, you can't grow anything. As soon as spring comes with this system,
Yep.
you can maximize the whole growing season and maximize photosynthesis, maximize the capture of sunlight,
Yes.
and maximize then all these carbon compounds going into the soil.
And like, look, it was 2004, I think I was over in America, and they were planting popcorn before the freeze. So when it thaws out, it pops up and away it goes. Well, the Soilkee system will be able to do that, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not all of the seeds, but if you can actually plant into half a freeze anyhow, I would think, with Soilkee. So you could plant in just starting to freeze off, and then as soon as it's thawed out, you're up and going. So a lot of those things are made easier when you've got glomalin or fungal gel in your soil profile and high sugars in your plants. They don't freeze the same. High water content in plant freezes and splits and dies and sets it back. If you've got a high sugar content under the Soilkee system, you're way less affected by the freeze as well.
Anyway, look, Niels, I'm actually mindful of the time. We were supposed to talk for half an hour, but what you're presenting, I think, is so important, so interesting that I think we'll close it off here.
Yep.
I just want to say that for me, this is the future of agriculture, and we need more and more people to be looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it. With these systems I call pasture cropping systems. Instead of ploughing out, spraying out, we can instead graze the pasture right down or mulch it, and then run the Soilkee over it to aerate it, to compost it, and plant cover crops straight into it. It is so much cheaper, so much more effective, and in the end, so much more productive.
Exactly. Yep.
So thanks, Niels, and I look forward to catching up again. It's always fun talking with you, and all with this.
Thanks, Andre. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you, Clive. Up next, we have Dr. André Liu. Dr. André has been the International Director of Regeneration International since 2017. Regeneration International has 600 partners in 80 countries across every arable continent and embraces various agricultural systems including agroecology, organic farming, biodynamic agriculture, permaculture, ecological farming, holistic plan grazing, biological agriculture, and agroforestry. From 2011 to 2017, André served as the president of IFOAM Organics International, the only worldwide representative organisation for the organic sector. André is an expert in nature-based ecological agricultural systems, having spent over 50 years as a regenerative organic farmer focused on agroecology. He's worked and visited countries developing food and farming systems across Asia, Pacific, Europe, North America, South America, and Africa. André has published four books, The Regenerative Agriculture Solution, Growing Life, Poisoning Our Children, and The Myths of Safe Pesticides. He has also written extensively for magazines, newspapers, scientific journals, conference proceedings, newsletters, and websites. He lectures and teaches at universities, institutions, conferences, seminars, workshops around the world, and serves as an adjunct professor of regenerative agriculture at South Seas University. He speaks and engages with governments, United Nations agencies, industry representatives, farmers, consumers, and NGOs about the multifunctional benefits of regenerative agriculture. André and his wife Julia live on their organic tropical fruit farm in Daintree, Australia. I'm really looking forward to this. Please welcome André to the stage.
Thanks, Nick, Clive, and also to the other Nick, Bart, Naomi, all the people who I've been in contact with. I think this looks like it's going to be a great conference. I suppose there's a whole list of things that Nick read out, but I'm really a farmer, someone who never finished school and started farming organically more than 50 years. And this is where I always feel the most comfortable and welcome, is with other farmers. So I'm really pleased to be here. The other thing is I'm someone who actually believes that organic and biodynamic wines are an essential food group. So I'm at the right place. Okay, I've been asked to talk about regenerative organic, because it's the buzzword at the moment, and in our case also now certification, and give you basically an overview and a history of it, and hopefully where we believe it's going. So it's really a global revolution. I know this because I'm someone who speaks with people on every continent all around the world every year. And it's in the news every day. It started because a handful of us, leaders from the organic, agroecology, holistic management, environment, natural health movements, we launched Regeneration International in 2015. However, the initial steering committee started in 2014. That was Dr. Vandana Shiva from Nabdanya, Ronnie Cummings from the Organic Consumers Association in the USA, Dr. Hans Herren from the Millennium Association in Switzerland, Steve Wright from Macola Health, and myself. At the time I was the president of IFOAM Organics International. And we really started the international regenerative movement. It's what we've achieved in 10 years is a worldwide partnership of like-minded movements. At the moment, we have 670 partners in 80 countries on every arable continent. Why did we do it? Well, this is why we did it. Because industrial agriculture, as it's practiced at the moment, is an existential threat to our planet. It is responsible for 60% of forest destruction and biodiversity loss. It's also responsible for most of the greenhouse gases. As a system, it feeds cruel, confined feeding operations. It also feeds biofuels. In other words, instead of feeding people, we're feeding trucks and aeroplanes. It's inefficient. 10 kilos of plant protein is used to make 1 kilo of animal protein. It's a cruel, inefficient and destructive system. Then when we start looking at all the pesticides, fertilizers and environmental damage that it's doing, you know, I have the figures for here in New Zealand and what agriculture is doing, particularly in terms of the amount of fertilizers going into the environment, but we also know that the cost of pesticides, not just for the environment, but for human health, the small amounts what we're seeing now is this incredible collapse of biodiversity around the planet because of these residual amounts of pesticides. Insects are crashing everywhere. We call it insectageddon. As a result, birds are crashing and so on. And it's not stopping. So the only way we can stop this is we have to change agriculture. It's sort of not seen as a problem, but in many ways it is the greatest problem that we face. And so this is why we decided that we needed to do something about it. Where this came from is when I was president of IFOAM Organics International, we started a project called Organic 3.0. This was actually started by a group of German organic farmers, and our CEO brought it to us and the board, and we really liked it. And I just want to explain the basis of Organic 3.0. Organic 1.0, that's our pioneers, and that really started in the 20s, you could say, with Steiner, but the real groups were soil health groups. They had names like Soil and Health. In New Zealand, you still have one of the two left, the longest serving Soil and Health. The other one is the Soil Association in the UK. But when I started in the 70s, we had our organisation was called the Healthy Soil Society, and is the initial pioneers from the 1930s and 40s who trained me, taught me as a teenager. I'd left home, I hadn't finished school, and I started farming, and taught me the basis of organic agriculture. And so I'm part of the group we call Organic, go back, hit the wrong one, Organic 2.0, and our time, we started to codify organic. We made the first standards, initially really simple little one-page standards, farmer-friendly. But eventually, we thought, we need government regulation and everything, and so we made regulatory standards. We got government, IFOAM formed, and we started to internationalise it, and we grew organic. But then we thought we've got to do more than just standards. Organic is an answer to these existential problems. We know it's an answer to climate change. We know it's an answer to all the environmental degradation from farming. We know it's an answer to all our health problems. Let's position organic as this lighthouse of change. And so this was our aim. This is normal agriculture. We thought organic, this is of course over-representation of our size. After 100 years, globally we're still less than 1%. But we thought as we grow organic, we will push the sustainability of all of agriculture. But we realised after 100 years being 1%, if we grew it to 2%, we're not going to really have much of a push. And if it takes 100 years to get the 1% and then double it another 100 years, we're going nowhere. So what we thought is that we need to join up with all these other like-minded movements. There's lots of people who are doing much the same as we are. Instead of saying who's the best, let's join together. We've got a common problem. Let's work together to change all of agriculture. Now, we actually started that. We were doing an event in the Rodale headquarters in New York when the climate change meeting was on, and that's when a handful of us got together, and we thought we need to build a new international movement to change things. And so we started it there. We wanted to use organic as the lighthouse, but we met incredible resistance from all the other like-minded movements, particularly the agroecology movement, for instance, was really anti-certified organic. So instead of getting back to having arguments about all this, let's find a term we can all agree on, something that's neutral, that doesn't carry baggage. And so we agreed on regenerative. Everybody agrees that we need to regenerate agriculture. Business as usual is not an option. And that's why that name came out. But it didn't come from nowhere. So let's look at the history of where regenerative came from. It came from our movement, the organic movement. And the word organic, to describe our agriculture, came into being, was popularised in the English language. In other languages, there's other words that have quite different meanings. But in the English language, it came about because in the 1940s, J.I. Rodale started the Organic Farming and Gardening magazine. And everywhere where we speak English, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, UK, Canada, got this magazine from the US. It was the most widely read. And Rodale chose the name organic based on Sir Albert Howard's Agricultural Testament. Sir Albert Howard and J.I. Rodale were very close friends, and it was due to the idea of recycling organic matter, using compost, green manures, now we call them cover crops, and building up soil organic matter. And that's how the name took off and why we're organic. In the 1980s, Rodale's son, Robert Rodale, put out a new term. It's called regenerative organic agriculture. And that was, the concept of that was having agriculture moving beyond sustainability. Now, it didn't really go anywhere, but there's some of us that, we're from that time. We love that concept. So that's when we decided we will use this term regenerative. And the reason why is we wanted to move beyond sustainability. The word's overused. At the time, Monsanto became the world's largest sustainable agricultural organisation, so for us it was worse than a joke. But sustainability is defined as maintaining resources in the environment without running them down, without degrading them. But in an already degraded environment like we have now with numerous problems, do we want to sustain things the way they are? I hope not. We need to repair. We need to improve. And that's what regeneration does. That's the whole concept. Moving beyond sustainability and instead of just maintaining resources, we improve them. Consequently, this term regeneration, it's a simple meme, but it resonated widely around the planet. And I just want to say too, this is a paradigm shift largely driven by farmers. We had our founding meeting when we founded Regeneration in Costa Rica on a biodynamic farm called Finca Nueva, in 2015. And we deliberately wanted to do it in the global south, not in Europe or North America, and be inclusive. Ronnie Cummings raised hundreds of thousands of US dollars, and we got people from every continent, every group there. And not just farmers, but we wanted all the stakeholders in this movement. So, we included producers, retailers, consumers, academics, media, government, researchers, and many like-minded NGOs. And after the meeting, they returned to their countries and promoted the concept of regenerative agriculture in films, for instance, Kiss the Ground, most people know that, Common Ground, but also in websites, social media, industry meetings. It was like we planted 1,000 seeds and most of them grew and bloomed and fruited. And still, this is what is happening. I just want to say, really importantly, it's being embraced by farmers organisations, food and textile corporations and governments on every continent. But the movement is largely driven by farmers, not corporations, not academics, not government. They're trying to join in. Some are trying to hijack us. Others are joining in for the right reasons. But we started it, and from our point of view, we maintain control. Most of the articles that we have about changing agricultural systems to be better for the environment, and especially for climate change, and this is a general movement towards the concept of organic 3.0. Many of these corporations are adopting systems improving soil organic matter and using techniques such as cover crops. They are also implementing programs to reduce toxic chemical inputs and improve environmental outcomes. And we see these actions as positive change. But what I want to say from our point of view, this is a start. It's not an end point. We want to start, this is the beginning of a transition to fully regenerative. And from our point of view, our organisation, regenerative, organic, and based on the science of agroecology. In some cases, regenerative can be seen as greenwashing, a buzzword used by industrial corporations like Bayer and Syngenta. But I just want to say too, they're not fooling farmers. The farmers know that business as usual is no longer an option. They're not getting all these extra farmers by doing it. What they've done is scored own goals for us. They've given us the publicity we could never afford to buy to promote regenerative agriculture. And as farmers hear it, they know that Roundup Ready GMOs are not regenerative. So they start now looking, what is regenerative? What can I do? So don't worry about the big corporations and people are making a fuss about it. As I said, these are own goals that we are using this free publicity, right of reply to get our messages across instead of always being hidden, never heard of. The other issue here, there's no clear definition of regenerative agriculture. Well, that's not right. We started this movement. We put out our definition right from the beginning. And as far as we're concerned, our definition is the primary one. We are the world's largest representative regenerative organisation. And yes, there's lots of different definitions. Most of them are narrower than ours. The word we will use is that most of these are actually what we call equivalent. It's like organic. There's actually hundreds of definitions from organic. Nearly every country has its own regulatory definition. The World Health Organization has a definition. IFOAM Organics has a definition. Do we worry about them? No, because they're equivalent. Let's not get into little semantic arguments. It's only when something is not equivalent. So let's look at our definition, which is a very broad one. It says, regenerative systems improve the environment, soil, plants, animal welfare, health, and communities. The opposite of regenerative is degenerative. This is an essential distinction in determining practices that are not regenerative. Agricultural systems that use degenerative practices and inputs that damage the environment, soil, health, genes, community, and involve animal cruelty are not regenerative. We realised right in the beginning, we saw the way sustainability was hijacked. We're in the organic industry. We could see the way that there are issues that we were fighting about that were hijacked by corporate organic. And we knew at some point we were going to be hijacked, or they'd try to hijack us. For us, the really clear distinction is this. The opposite of regenerative is degenerative. It's a very simple distinction. So if you're using synthetic pesticides, synthetic water-soluble fertilisers, genetically modified organisms, confined animal feeding operations, exploitive marketing and wage systems, destructive tillage and clearing high-value ecosystems, these are examples of degenerative activities. You can't call any of these things regenerative. So when we hear that, we say, look, there's a typo. You're not regenerative, you are degenerative ag. That is very important. Also, now, as this movement is really still growing quickly, to be very clear on what is regenerative, we put out our Regenerative Regeneration International Standard. Now, we've made this a straightforward, clear, farmer-friendly standard rather than a complex regulatory standard. A lot of us, we come from the early days where the first standards were made by farmers for farmers before they got hijacked by the bureaucracy. So we wanted to bring standards back to the way that it's easy for farmers to use and, rather than for the bureaucrats. Our goal is to clearly position regenerative agriculture within the organic agriculture paradigm of nature-based systems. And we use IFOAM Organics International's 4 principles of organic agriculture as the criteria to evaluate is something regenerative or degenerative. And as I said before, degenerative practices, which are the opposite of regenerative, cannot be deemed regenerative. We chose to use IFOAM's 4 principles of organic agriculture rather than national regulatory standards such as the USDA or EU, because this can be used worldwide. There, an example of one regenerative organic, it uses the USDA standard. Now, that's okay if you're in the US and you want to be certified to it, or if you're in another country and you want to export to the US. But for the rest of the world, it's a huge unnecessary cost. And then if we decide, we'll use every regulatory standard because this is intended as a global standard, it'd be an absolute nightmare. It's just so simple. We use the principles of organic. There's only 4: health, ecology, fairness, and care. We make it really easy for farmers to work out what is regenerative, what is degenerative, and we simply position it within the organic agriculture paradigm. The really important thing for us is that we want to change agriculture. And getting farmers on that first step to change is the hardest thing. A lot of farmers want to change, they're very frightened of it. So what we've done with our standard certification system, we've made this first step very, very easy to get on the pathway of change. Our research shows that one of the reasons why we're not getting the take-up of organic certification is the 3-year transition, conversion, time period. That really puts off farmers. So under our standard, they can achieve essentially certification as regenerative in transition pretty well right in the beginning. And as a result, we can get them on the pathway because they're in transition to go towards what we call regenerative A grade. So what we have, you see, is regenerative A grade, where certified operators will meet all the requirements, and regenerative in transition in the process of meeting all the requirements. And this process is very important. What we want to do is take farmers on a journey of change. So most of this, most of the standards is actually informative rather than normative. Normative says thou shall, thou must. In this case, what we want to do is educate farmers. So we have principles and guidance and we explain them and let farmers go through it and decide what works for them, which ones do they want to try. You know, so it's about empowering farmers to be their own agents of change and giving them, these are the directions that you can take. These are the practices that you can do. We want to encourage farmers to take education in best practices. And once again, this is informative, not normative, because we're farmers. You know, I'm someone, my wife and I, you know, we raised our children on a farm. We started off with no money, nothing, and just worked our butts off. Did we have time to go and take a course? No. We needed that time to sleep before we had to get up and do work. So we understand the farmers may have every intention to do it, but the reality of life on a farm, particularly when you've got small kids, is very, very different. So it's informative again. We want to encourage farmers, not impose it. Let the farmers choose and do it their own time. Maybe when the kids have left home, now they can do it. But we do have prohibitions. These are normative and mandatory. And this is a really important part here. And really important things like synthetic pesticides, synthetic feed supplements, water-soluble fertilisers, GMOs, hydroponics. There's a whole range of issues that are out there being debated in our movements. We just want to make it very clear. No, 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 no. These are degenerative. They are prohibited. It makes the standard very simple and clear. The other part of the standard that is mandatory is the management plan. And this is probably, from our point of view, the most important part of it. As I said, what we want to do is bring farmers on a journey of change, not impose an ultimate outcome, and empower farmers to be the managers of their own change. And so we want them to do management plans, and we want them to look at issues like increasing soil organic matter, building soil fertility, increasing plant and animal biodiversity. With these plans, we don't have a template. We don't have to say you've got to write an essay that your professor will pass at university. They can be as simple and in plain English or whatever language, Hindi, whatever language someone speaks, whatever their level of education is. We just want them to get the idea on paper. What are you doing now? And how do you think you can do it better? Every year look at it again and go, how can I do it better? So we build an awareness of the farming system and an awareness of what are they doing and what issues have they got, how can you do it better? So we can bring in a culture of making farmers grow better. There are other ones like economic management, which from my experience as a farmer and meeting with farmers, most of us are pretty good at growing. Where it falls down is most of us are shit at selling and making money. And so we want to change that because it doesn't have to be that way. I'm someone who started off with nothing and still farming, not because I have to, because I love it. I've still got calluses on my hands. I couldn't think of it. I'll give it up the day after I die. Farming for me is the antidote to everything else I do. But in the end, I became a very successful farmer because I learned how to market, how to sell, and I learnt that farming is a business. How do I manage my budget? So that's a really important part of what we're doing here is getting farmers to think about how they market, how can they get more money, and then also how can you look at your farm as a business, reduce costs, reduce expenses, increase income, and make a good profit, which is what we do. So these are really important issues. This is actually why I was really glad to see the marketing aspects of this conference. You know, it's so important. I think the really important thing I just want to get across, under our standard, most of the current regenerative standards and some of the organic standards we would regard as as regenerative in transition. And what certified operators need that are regenerative in transition is a transition plan. And in that plan, they outline timelines and methods for reducing and eliminating prohibited products and production methods. So we need to get them thinking about it. How are they going to do it? Not just saying, I'm going to do it. Or the usual way, oh, look, if I don't have Roundup, I can't farm. You know, weeds will take over, that sort of thing. If I don't have urea, I'll get no crop. That sort of attitude, in our case, doesn't wash. We have to say, what are you going to do to get rid of Roundup? What are the practices? What are you going to do instead of pouring urea on your fields? And get them to think about it and take a proactive management style approach where you look at how you transition. What are you going to do? What are realistic timeframes to do it in? And you review it every year so that we start them on that process of continual improvement. The last thing I want to end on is the only certifiers that we are accrediting are organic certifiers because they've got the systems in place that we trust, the oldest and the best of all the agricultural certification systems. I know that because I'm one of the people involved in setting them up over 50 years ago. And so it's only organic certifiers. At the moment, we've accredited one. That's the organic food chain in Australia, and we've started that process. But we're actually in discussions all around the world at the moment to roll this out. If people are interested, the general manager of organic food chain is here. Cara, can you just put up your hand if people want to see you, if you want to talk to her about it. But I just want to end it here is that for us, this is a really important step in helping farmers transition from degenerative industrial agriculture to regenerative. And if they wish, because they're already certified by an organic certifier, in many cases actually certified to a higher standard than many organic regulatory standards, it's a small little step if they want to be certified organic. So thank you.